Hi, my name is Rachel, and I've been teaching for about 5 years. I have experience teaching English as a second language in Guatemala, and I also have experience teaching pre-K through 8th grades in the United States. I am Native American, so I can understand the feeling of living in two different worlds and the confusion that might result from that. Um, Whether my students come from another country or culture, or whether they speak a different language, I can also understand that because I know what it's like to live in another country where the majority language is not English, and I know how it can be a struggle to communicate. So I feel like that helps me be a better teacher because I can be more sensitive to my students and the way my teaching is affecting them. In the previous video about personal virtues, I described the virtues that I believe I have. I mentioned humility, tolerance, resilience, and curiosity. These virtues came into play during my past teaching experience for sure. Humility guides everything I do. Without it, no one can learn anything because they will always think they know better than the people trying to give them advice. Often the most important learning experiences come from students, and it's important to be humble enough to learn from them. Otherwise, you will keep making the same mistakes over and over and not be very effective as a teacher. Also, learning from students requires tolerance, resilience, and curiosity as well. Otherwise, you'll just go boringly through the teaching process and not really contribute much to your students and not really learn that much. For like resilience is important when you're dealing with a new demographic that you haven't worked with before or just a new classroom. The students are new, they don't know who you are, you don't know who they are. You're getting to know each other. You need to remember faces, names, and the different things that each student needs. So, yeah. Also, parents can give you a hard time sometimes, so it's important to be resilient. Curiosity is always important. You always, it helps with learning and it helps with teaching as well because you can pass that love of learning on to your students. Without that, it's really hard to learn. Um, One of the things I learned in this course that I didn't already know is how to specifically apply multicultural teaching to specific demographic groups. Even if students aren't racially or ethnically diverse, there's so many diversities in learning. Each student is different from the next, and there's so many different challenges that students face, and being sensitive to what works for them is very important and what doesn't work. So when I was making the toolkit, using applications like Trello is really helpful because it helps me picture what it would be like to have my own class. I have substitute taught, so I was responsible for a class for one day or even a week, but for the whole year is different. And in the future, if I'm unsure how to implement multicultural instruction with a student demographic that I'm not familiar with, I will. I have a game plan now. I will ask my more experienced coworkers for help, and also talk to parents and observe my students, talk to them, and get to know a little bit about them enough to figure out how to best help them out. And then once I get all these ideas, I can just jot them all down and then organize them and then figure out how to run off of that. So that's very helpful. And so, yeah, that is my experience so far in this course and a little bit of who I am. Thank you for listening. Bye.